Hey everyone, my name's Heather Sherwood. I'm going to go ahead and show you my resources and my toolkit for the emerging trends in technology and ed tech. I decided to go ahead and do something a little bit different and give you a new resource called LiveBinder. It's not actually that new, it's pretty old actually. But I found that this has been a lot more useful than just going to Google or Pinteresting different ideas. This actually keeps me organized and keeps me accountable for my different resources and all the different lessons that I use. And I went ahead and I made a live binder for the actual toolkit, which I know I provided a lot more resources and tools than was required in the assignment, but I feel like I can actually go back and use this as I continue on in my teaching career and hopefully my coaching career. So as you can see, I'm going to just go ahead and describe how this layout works. There's several different layout options. I chose this because it seemed the best and the easiest to maneuver, but it's basically like a digital binder, which is great. So I went ahead and I created my own appendix, and like I said, I have a little bit more in here than what the requirements were, but everything is available in here, and it's in multiple locations, so it's easy to maneuver and find. The specific trends that I'm focusing on, though, are the increased use of collaborative approaches, and I did that kind of twice because I felt like gamification, though it could have been like blended learning, I feel like it is also collaborative, so I went ahead and just jumbled those together. I also talked a little bit about personalized learning and the important developments in the EdTech world. The enhanced lesson that I focused on was on today's meet, so I'll go into that a little bit later. So for the personalized learning, I went in and I'm focusing mainly on Genius Hour. If you haven't heard about Genius Hour, it's not a new idea. Again, this is something that teachers have been doing for quite a long time. Basically, what they do, there's so many different definitions, but it allows for students to drive their own learning. So you take 20% of the time. Most teachers do it like every Friday, or they take 20 minutes out of their day, depending on how your structures are. You can do it in a multitude of different ways. But students are the ones creating these passion projects, and teachers can develop different questions to help guide them, but there's so many different tools to help the students and teachers make this a successful experiment. I also provided an example of how different teachers set it up in their rooms. It's a great article to go ahead and read about, but I'm actually doing this in my community hour, which is like an advisory program. I find that it's best to start off in that kind of an environment because the kids already know that they're not getting a grade anyway for the course, and it's a 20-minute course or 20-minute class in the beginning of their day, so they know right away that it's an unpressured environment. And eventually I'm going to push this into my mainstream classes, and it's really cool because you get to see how the kids develop their own skills and their own research and their own passions and feel more passionate about what they are researching rather than you giving them the topic to research. And Genius Hour can be done in a whole bunch of different ways. Again, there's so many different resources. I really highly recommend you follow Joy Kerr on Twitter. She is like the Genius Hour guru, and she really knows how to kind of get students learning and get students holding themselves accountable for what they're learning. I didn't put it in here, but I just thought about it. Also thinking about the book Teach Like a Pirate and Learn Like a Pirate. Sorry about that. It's just, those are great resources to help students really feel passionate about what they are learning and just personalize it to what they want to learn, not just what we have to teach. So those are just some resources on Genius Hour. Moving on into gamification. So we all have probably heard about Kahoot before. If you haven't heard about Kahoot, it's a great way for students to review, or if students have already mastered a content, then they can create a Kahoot, which I've had several students do for like book reports. They will provide a book report and to test their audience to see if they were actually listening, they went ahead and they created a Kahoot for their audience to play, which I thought was so smart of them, and they loved it. There's also Quizlet Live, which a couple of our colleagues have already talked about. What I would like to talk about with this is, again, students can create this, but I really like the fact that you can have the students in teams. I don't really like it when students are silent. I prefer them talking about an answer and all agreeing on the same one, and they have to agree on the same one. It is timed, so there's pressure in that respect, but at the same time, it makes it a fun environment, and I see Quizlet Live as a beneficial resource in like a math class and a science class. We've played it with different grammar rules or different issues with grammar, but not so much in literature and with writing. So, but definitely for those content specific like science and math and even history would be a great resource for Quizlet Live. Then I went into like video games in schools, and here's a great resource to help you guys with this. This one was talking a little bit about World of Warcraft and Angry Birds. I've used code.org to help with code, like with not just coding in the classroom, but also gaming. So like I had a unit for a narrative unit, and the students had to code their own version of Flappy Bird. If you go to the code.org site, you can see that. I'll put that into my binder after this video, actually, and I'll just talk about how coding really helps kids to problem solve and think, but many people don't think that it belongs in the language arts environment, whereas I respectfully disagree. You can definitely have kids come up with their own story plotline, and the kids create their own version of Flappy Bird. Then they have to write the narrative about it and storyboard it and come up with this whole grandiose narrative, and it all started from a code and a game that inspired them, so it's really awesome. Something else that is really great is Brainpop. Unfortunately, you have to have a subscription, or your school has to have a subscription. My old district did have a subscription, and things like my Brainpop allowed me to have to create my own quiz questions and put it into the Brainpop format, so the kids thought it was actually Brainpop that was coming up with these questions when actually it was me. You also have different games that are related to whatever history content or science or whatever it is. Obviously, you can see the different subjects that they talk about. So it is a really great resource. Unfortunately, my district now does not have a subscription, so I can't go into it and show you. But it is great. I highly recommend it. My next piece, I just wanted to post this because there are a lot of teachers who want to get into gaming and adding games into their lesson plans and their classes. And here's just a site of 40 different gaming sites that would help for educators. My next tool, this is more of that collaborative piece, or not collaborative, I'm sorry. It's, I'm just going to go back. See how fast that was? We're in the important development. So I know that multimedia, like, oh, we don't want to hear about slideshows, but, you know, here's a resource that talks about different multimedia and why it's important for students to kind of go on in, and it helps with different formative assessments and just creativity all in all. This is eMaze. eMaze is a web-based slideshow resource, and it allows students to be more creative with their presentations and more purposeful with their presentations. It also allows for teachers to be more purposeful with their presentations. And then I also added a common sense review from a teacher about how she feels about eMaze. And then I have LiveBinder. Again, I really do believe that this is better than Pinterest. It really does help with organization, and that's actually something I struggle with as a teacher. And for me to be able to understand how to use this and format my own thinking so that I don't have to print off everything and put it into real binders, which I don't do anymore anyways. But this helps me keep everything in one place, and I can put all my units in to this virtual binder basically and never lose any of my resources. That includes videos, that includes any links I'm using, any links to presentations. I can link everything in here, and I can also give these links to my students if I want them. Let's say I have a couple students who are pretty advanced and I can differentiate. I can give them the whole unit and say, okay, you can go ahead and guide your own learning using this live binder resource. So that's another way we can use live binders in the classroom. There's endless possibilities, but I really do love the organization factor of it and just how simple it is to use. And finally, Nearpod. This is my absolute favorite presentation tool. I've known about this for a couple of years now, but this year I actually started using it a lot more. As you can see in my description, there's different ways that you can use Nearpod, and I created a how-to, and in my how-to I talk about how you can add different activities, and I'm actually going to go ahead and just show you how I do it, because in my how-to it just talks about different pictures and like what you can do, but the interface is really easy to maneuver. So this screen right here, let's say I'm creating a brand new Nearpod. So I'm going to go ahead and add slide. If I had content already available, it can connect to my Google slideshows. By hitting slideshow, I would just have to connect to my drive and find something that I've already created, and I'll just show you how that works. Let's hold on one second. Obviously you need to have permission, but it can be connected, so I'll go ahead and select this slideshow and it will upload. It's waiting, sorry. So my slideshow is already added, it is processing, and as we wait for that, I'm going to go ahead and add another slide. Let's say I want to add an activity. I'd like to add a open-ended question and say, what do you think of this great resource? Students will then be able to go in and answer those questions, and it'll pop up on my screen, and I can share the questions with every student without their name attached to it, so it's really anonymous and really beneficial for the students. So again, I have my slideshow here. I can add all of them. I can keep none of them. I mean, it's really up to you. So if I just add, oops, if I save, I'm good to go. So let's say I just wanted that one, that's all I'm going to get. You then could preview your slideshow, and then before you go live, you just save it as live. But I really enjoy how this Nearpod activity works. When you're done, I'll go to my library and show you what you can do. If I were to go to something I've done before, I can go to the live lesson. At the bottom, the kids will get this code. I can send this to them. I can put it through Google Classroom. I can put it in an email. I can send it through Twitter. I can do whatever I want, or they could just type it in, which usually I do. This will light up as green or red. It will be green when all students are in. It will be red when a student leaves the website, so I'll know if not everyone is on there, which is awesome. I can see the names that are in there. And last but not least, when I'm done, I'm going to hit end session, but before I do that, I want to hit reports, and it will send me a report of this session. All of my reports, like I say in my how-to, I'm going to go ahead and leave, are in the category that says reports. So the one that I just clicked on, there's a report of nothing right now because, you know, I didn't do anything, but all of the ones I have done, I've gotten reports, and it all sends here, and it also sends to my email. Something also neat, you know how I just suspended that session? It asked me if I wanted to resume it. I can save changes and move on. Save and exit, you have to usually pick that, but at the same time, you can go back to your library, and I think it was this one, the reading nonfiction. Sorry, guys. So the live lesson, it asks if I want to resume it. I can say no because I don't need to, and it'll move on. So it'll give me a new code when I don't resume it, which is good because I teach 3 sections, and I don't want my kids all being in the same session. I want to be able to compare each class individually. So that's a nice feature too. Okay, so going back to Nearpod, or to LiveBinder, that's, again, Nearpod is a great tool. I've also used it, that reports part is really great for formative feedback to see, do my students really understand what I'm teaching them? And since we use the workshop model, it's great for that active engagement component that so many teachers just don't know how to incorporate in their workshop and in their mini lessons. And I've been able to do that within Nearpod, and it takes like 2 minutes tops. Then we move to the collaboration tools. I did my enhanced lesson on Today's Meet. I really love Today's Meet. I've used Today's Meet for a very long time. It is a back channel. I'll go to the site so you can see what it looks like. But basically you can create a room. If you have an account, which I do, you can just log in with Google, which is really convenient. And I love how Google just makes your life easier. You can save your rooms like I've done before, and you can see them for up to a year depending on how long you want to see them. The nice thing that I really love about Today's Meet is that I use it during my Socratic seminars. If you've never done a Socratic seminar before, I highly encourage you to do it. It's great for a comprehension assessment and just a formative feedback, and for a summative assessment to see, do the kids really have this topic mastered or not. So in my example lesson, it's a language arts lesson, but again, it could be easily done within any content area. I talked about how my kids had shared different texts between the Watsons Go to Birmingham, Gold Cadillac, and then they actually sought out different news stories from today that kind of went along with segregation issues and social justice. We used the Today's Meet. I had to teach them basic annotation skills before we actually did this, because you want to make sure the kids have evidence in order to back up their thinking. Depending on how many times you've done the Socratic seminar, you can have students provide a comprehensive list of questions, of higher order questions, or you can provide it, or you can have your students create the list. If you have students create the list, provide them with Bloom's taxonomy verbs so that they know what to do. I teach 6th grade, so I have done this both ways, and it's been very successful and very intriguing to observe. Then as each day goes on, you have your students work in small groups, and they practice to make sure they know exactly what they're answering. Then you do a practice run of the Socratic seminar where there's 8 people in the verbal circle inside, and then the rest are split on the outside. So in the past, like old school Socratic seminars, like I remember doing this in my high school experience, we would have to write in notebooks, and then really how many of us actually focused in the notebooks, and it took a very long time. Whereas in Today's Meets, it's in live time, real time, and it's 140 characters, so you really have to think about what you're saying. So I really enjoyed using Today's Meet, and then we also use the transcripts from that conversation in Today's Meet and a Google form reflection to talk about how we did as a class communicating our ideas effectively and efficiently. And I've seen this work efficiently in a math classroom. I'm trying to push one of my science coworkers to do this in his classroom. I really think that this strategy of Socratic seminar and using Today's Meet is just a perfect marriage of such a great comprehension assessment and just really understanding where the kids are and where they need to go next. So that's my big, I really love Today's Meet. Other resources like Socrative. Some people love this, some people don't. It's a learning management system that helps teachers understand where students are. They can do really quick formative assessments, exit tickets. That's great. And students can also go ahead and collaborate with each other on that. Then there's also sites like Lino and Padlet, which are very similar to each other. Essentially, they're just like idea boards, but you can put things, like Padlet has been used before as like an idea board, but also as a portfolio builder, which is what LiveBinder can also be built for. And so students can be super creative, or they can be very simple. It could be a timeline. There's a variety of different resources that can really be pulled from Padlet. With Google, I think we all know the support for why Google is so amazing. Google Drive is great for collaboration. You know, as long as you are shared with each other, you can comment on each other, you can write a story together, you can write a song, you can do whatever you want together as long as you had that shared capability. And it's really transformed the classroom, and it actually creates teachers thinking in a different way of teaching, because no longer are we limited to just one person's perspective or ideas, but we can be open to a million different ideas. And one way I've used Google Drive in my classroom is not just collaborating with my kids in the classroom, but collaborating with other classrooms or other schools across the state or across the country. You know, I'd be willing to collaborate with any of you and your classes with my 6th grade students and their stories. Maybe they can do some kind of editing project, or creating a Google Hangout where they talk about each other's state. I mean, that would be so great. What a great opportunity for collaboration. And Google is free, so it's really easy to go ahead and use. And then finally, I have all of my video resources. So I'm using Today's Meet as a back channel, Socrative like a tutorial, using LiveBinder. I really highly recommend you use this. Using Nearpod and then Padlet, that's a great resource as well. I also have my other resources right here in the appendix. So the article resources are all right here. And there's a couple, they're all also located within the actual tab. So they're kind of all in each tab, but I've also made sure that the appendix and my video resources are very organized. So if you have any questions about anything that I talked about, please feel free to email me. I plan on growing my LiveBinder as it develops and as I grow as an educator. I would like to use this in my coaching job if and when I get one. Because I feel like this would be a really great resource for my teachers to go to, so that they can feel comfortable and confident in using some of these resources with the videos and the support resources to help them out. So other than that, that's all I have for you all today. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great rest of your Sunday.